So today we're going to talk about 3 of the building blocks. Each one will talk about the philosophy behind that building block, commonly prioritized activities that facilitators do to support that activity in the clinics they're facilitating, some resources that we've created or at least have found and curated, how you as a facilitator can support this work in this area of that particular building block. We'll present a case and have a discussion. So that's what we're going to do for leadership and consensus. So let's start off. So the philosophy is sort of the rationale. Why is this important? And I think everybody would say, oh yeah, you got to have leadership on board. It's really important. But it's important because leadership provides a sense of a prioritization of saying, yes, this work is important for us. And this is why it's important for us to do this work. They provide some space and time for people to actually work in this area. And I realize there are a lot of competing demands in primary care. As a family physician, I know that. There are a lot of things we have to do. But getting this up the list in terms of priority of things we need to be working on is important. Sometimes you have to put it on the back burner for a little time, but coming back to it is always important. And leadership always helps you get it off the back burner and back to the front burner. Leadership can also remind people that we need to be talking about this. We need to create opportunities for conversations about this. Leadership can make sure this is a standing item on the monthly staff agenda to get an update on where are we with improving in this area of opioid medication management. We can make sure that if we're doing huddles in the morning before we start our day, we can address this as a topic in our daily huddle. And the important part about this is the way that you as an organization develop a consensus about this is how we do it here. This is the way we manage patients on long-term opioids, and there's a sense of tribalism, or our way of doing it here is this way, and that helps build consensus for everybody, from clinicians to medical assistants to nursing staff to front desk staff, to all understand this is how we do it. So, what can you as a facilitator do? What can a facilitator do to help support this? You can help them build their opioid improvement team. You can help them figure out who needs to be on that team, give them some guidance about who needs to be on the team. You can host a kickoff meeting and with all the clinicians and staff, where you're gathering feedback and finding out what the priority areas are, where there's opportunity for improvement. You can regularly emphasize the project through different activities, the ones I've just mentioned. Another good idea is we saw a clinician champion in one small rural practice stand up during the initial kickoff meeting, what we call the kickoff meeting, when you get all the people in the clinic together to announce that we're going to do this project together. That clinical champion stood up and said, I want to tell you why this work is important for all of us to engage in. And that really got people's attention for a clinician to stand up and express that. And we've got some within the resources that you will have as a facilitator, a list of milestones that you can track within this phase of work, or within this building block. Some of the resources that we have for you, we've got some tip sheets on building an opioid improvement team. Of course, there's the 6 building block self-assessment that we'll get into more detail later about. There are clinical education opportunities for people to learn about chronic pain and what is chronic pain, the current thinking and science behind chronic pain. There's a CME pain management course. There's a document about they're always slow to adopt providers in every setting. That's normal. There are always providers who say, I'm about to retire in 2 years. I don't really think this is for me. I'm not going to change the way I'm doing things. So this is about What levers of what we call intrinsic motivation can you pull that will help get those slow to adopt providers on board? And then there's a resource about how you can help the clinic develop actually sort of a chronic pain management team. So this is a smaller group of people who meet to support all the providers with patient cases that are more difficult to manage, and come up with do a chart review and come up with some recommendations about how they can do better. So as a facilitator, one of the things that's important that you can do is be that outside person during the kickoff meeting who is the neutral facilitator of a discussion about the results from the self-assessment, about divergent perspectives. So every time we do this, when we have people fill out that self-assessment and we have them give their impression about where you are on this journey, we find that people have different opinions. In one clinic we went to, and Katie and I will remember this, when it got to, do you have clinic policies about opioid refills and how you manage opioid refills? The medical director of the clinic said, we're a 12. On a scale of 1 to 12, we're a 12. We have a policy, we've implemented, everybody follows it. The medical assistant said, we don't have a policy. What do you mean we have a policy? There's no such thing as a policy. And the medical director said, yeah, we've got a policy on that. And the medical assistant said, show us where that policy is. We didn't know about that policy. So there's always different perspectives on the work that is revealed when you have these discussions. That's really important for the clinic to say, aha, then here's an area, an opportunity where we can do something different, where we can get that policy out. We can go over it with everybody. We can answer questions. We can implement it more fully. You can ask the clinical champion to share why this work is important during that kickoff meeting. I've already mentioned that. In one setting, actually more than one setting, we've encouraged clinic champions that if they have any data, to bring that data to that kickoff meeting. So any kind of data on opioid refills, any kind of data on patients who have been recently started on opioids, whatever measures, whatever data you have, how many refills were there of opioids in the last month? Bring that data to the clinic and share why that's important. And then when you're meeting with the smaller improvement team, with the people who are actually doing the work of trying to make the changes in the clinic, think about how they can prioritize where there are low-hanging fruit to improve management of patients with chronic pain. And there's some discussion questions on page 9 of the Prepare and Launch Guide that we have on the website and in the binder that we sent you that you should look at, that will help you think that through. This is really important, and I learned this from a quality improvement, a colleague of mine who said, when you're doing QI work, no data without stories and no stories without data. Patient stories trigger a part of our brain that data does not. Presenting data is often necessary to get people to the table to talk to you, but it's the stories about individual patients that actually pull a lever of motivation that data does not. So encourage the opioid improvement team to elicit a story of a patient where either something unintended happened, there was an adverse consequence, or a success story, a patient who was on long-term opioids, who was successfully tapered, and the spouse came into the clinic and said, thank you for giving me my husband back. I thought I had lost him. So it's those kinds of stories that really pull on the heartstrings and help us think about, this is why we do it. This is not just about measures and data. This is about improving people's lives and the quality of their life, which is why we all went into healthcare to begin with. So stories are important. So think about a story of a patient that you can use, and then share those stories with the rest of the clinic or during a staff meeting or a huddle about why we're doing this. Ask the opioid improvement team members about, well, in your organization, what motivates staff and clinicians in their daily work? Why do they do what they do on a daily basis? And think about how you can use those motivations to improve the care of patients with chronic pain who are on opioids. We've also seen that clinics that encourage including staff in medical education opportunities about evidence-based chronic pain care, medical assistants, nursing staff, even front desk staff. We've seen organizations that when the provider went to get the ex-waiver training for buprenorphine, they brought along some of the clinic staff with them to that training, that in-person training to get their ex-waiver. I've already mentioned this, but encourage clinic leadership to make the opioid improvement team update a standing agenda item for monthly staff meetings, or however often you're having staff meetings. Say, where are we? How are things going? What are we doing next? So we're going to do a case. We want you to read the case, define the problem, think through actions and strategies, and then identify resources on the website or the binder, the 6 building blocks resources that you think would be helpful in solving this problem. All right. So the case is this, and I've mentioned this already. You've been working in one clinic, the Northway Clinic, and there's one provider who has a large number of patients on chronic opioids, long-term opioid therapy. And like I said, this provider may be 2 years away from retirement. He's never seen a patient have any problem with their opioids, no adverse events, doesn't think it's necessary to make any changes. He says, all of my patients are little old ladies who are on less than 20 morphine equivalents a day, people in their 70s. I really don't think I have to change anything. I'm not going to engage in doing any of this work. Just don't bother me, leave me alone.